So, think about what happens if you break your arm.
Right.
You go to the doctor, they take an x-ray, and it gives you this totally clear, objective, jagged white line.
Right. There's the break.
Yeah.
Right there on the film.
Exactly. The doctor literally points to the fracture, you put a cast on it, and the whole healing process is, pretty predictable. The problem is visible to everyone.
Yeah, it's undeniable. You can show it to people and they get it instantly.
But, I mean, when your internal life is fracturing, when you are just so consumed by stress or anger that you're physically exhausted by your own mind, there's no x-ray machine for that.
No, definitely not.
We're looking at this internal landscape that is murky, it's loud, and it's incredibly destructive. But you can't just, point to a piece of film to explain to your family why you feel so awful all the time.
Right, because the injury isn't a broken bone. It's a fractured relationship with the present moment. And man, that is far more difficult to isolate because the symptoms, well, they mask themselves as personality traits.
Oh, that's such a good point. People don't say, oh, I have a fractured relationship with time.
Exactly. They say, I have a short temper or, I'm just a stressed out person. They internalize it as who they are.
Which is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Today, we were examining a really fascinating psychological blueprint hidden inside this narrative text.
Yeah, it's a piece called The Wisdom of the Burning Coals.
Right, and on its surface, this source reads like a pretty simple fable, right? It's about this 26-year-old man named Arjun, and he basically seeks out a wise man to cure his chronic anger.
Yeah, but what's so wild is that rather than getting some, long philosophical lecture about peace, Arjun is forced to endure this highly specific, physically dangerous task.
It's intense. And our mission today is to completely deconstruct the psychological mechanics that are mapped out in this text. We're going to look at the sheer cognitive load of living in the past and the future.
Because that load is heavy. It's crushing, really.
And we're going to see exactly how a physical anchor in the present moment can completely rewrite your emotional reality.
It's super relevant, too. I want you to think about your own baseline of exhaustion.
Oh, yeah. Like when you're snapping at a slow driver on your commute or feeling totally overwhelmed by a bursting email inbox.
Right, exactly. Ask yourself, are you actually reacting to that specific moment? Or are you operating a mind that is already at maximum capacity before the crisis even hits?
That is the big question. And to understand the cure the wise man eventually gives Arjun, we first have to, really examine the disease.
Right. We have to look at exactly how Arjun's anger was destroying his life. And the source material establishes his baseline so beautifully by giving us this stark contrast right off the bat.
Yeah, let's talk about where he lives, because it's not what you'd expect for a guy who is this angry.
No, not at all. So Arjun is 26, and he lives in a small village surrounded by green hills. The text is very clear that the external environment is incredibly peaceful.
It sounds gorgeous, honestly. It's the kind of idyllic, quiet geography that, people today would pay thousands of dollars to visit on some fancy meditation retreat.
Exactly. But his internal environment, it's a chaotic, burning inferno. He is perpetually furious. And the text proves instantly that your geography does not dictate your psychology.
Man, isn't that the truth?
You could be sitting in actual paradise, but if your mind is a war zone, you are at war.
That's a great way to put it. And the text is incredibly specific about the anatomy of his chronic anger. It builds this clinical triad of suffering, the triggers, the collateral damage, and the internal toll.
Let's start with the triggers because they really jump out. The text says, quote, small things made him furious.
Yeah, and the examples are so relatable but also so telling. It's as if someone spoke loudly, if the food was late, if the weather was too hot, his mind would fill with rage.
Notice what's missing from that list.
Actual trauma. Nobody's stealing his money. Nobody is threatening his life.
Right. These are pure microstressors. From a neurological standpoint, his reaction is completely, wildly disproportionate to the actual stimulus.
But if we look at the underlying commonality of these triggers, it's really interesting. They're all entirely outside of his control.
Every single one. He cannot control the vocal cords of another human being.
Nope.
He cannot control the linear progression of time that makes his food late. And he certainly cannot control atmospheric thermodynamics, right? The weather is the weather.
He is suffering from this massive illusion of environmental control. It's like when you demand that the world conform perfectly to your preferences, that it be quiet, prompt, temperate, And then the world inevitably behaves like the messy, unpredictable place it is.
The gap between your expectation and reality just manifests as absolute rage.
Exactly. He's actively angry at the sky for being blue. He's furious at reality for simply existing.
And the collateral damage of this demand for control is severe. I mean, the text notes he has 0 close friends.
Which is heartbreaking.
Yeah, and his family is deeply worried about him. He has isolated himself socially because nobody can meet his impossible standards of environmental perfection.
But the phrase in the text that, for me, fundamentally shifts the perspective on his whole condition is this one line. It says, quote, "And even he felt tired of himself."
Oh, that is the most crucial psychological insight in this entire first section.
Right, because anger is conventionally perceived as an outward projection. We think of it as a weapon, like something wielded to intimidate or control or defend against other people.
But the text reveals the internal thermodynamics of chronic anger here. It is deeply corrosive inward. Being tired of himself speaks to this actual medical phenomenon known as allostatic overload.
Wait, break that down for us. What is allostatic overload?
So it's basically the physiological wear and tear on the body from chronic overactivity of the stress response system. It's when your engine is revving in the red zone for so long that the parts start breaking down.
Wow, so he isn't just alienating his village, he is literally metabolically destroying his own system.
Completely. And the source text gives us the exact mechanism driving this motor burnout. It explicitly links his insomnia and his exhaustion to time-traveling thoughts.
Time-traveling thoughts, I love that phrasing. The text states every night he would lie awake thinking about the people who had hurt him in the past and the problems he might face tomorrow.
He is completely trapped in a state of perpetual mental time travel.
It's like a smartphone. Think about it. When you have dozens of heavy applications running in the background, right? Like the GPS is constantly pinging satellites, you've got video editing, software rendering, heavy graphics loading.
Oh, yeah, and the battery just tanks.
Exactly. The battery drains to 0, the device gets physically hot to the touch, and the central processing unit experiences thermal throttling.
The entire system slows down just to prevent a literal meltdown.
Right. And in Arjun's case, he has the Past Hurts app constantly refreshing, constantly downloading every old grievance. And he has the Future Problems app running these massive predictive models on everything that could possibly go wrong tomorrow.
So when he tries to open a simple low-energy application like, I don't know, just eating a meal or listening to someone speak, the entire system freezes or crashes.
Yes. The late food isn't the problem. The hot weather isn't the problem.
They're just the breaking points for a computational system that has exactly 0 RAM left available.
He has absolutely no present moment processing power left. His cognitive load is entirely consumed by yesterday and tomorrow, so he is hyper-reactive to any immediate sensory input.
Right. Our brains actually rely on this network called the default mode network, or DMN.
Right.
And this network becomes highly active when we are awake, but not focused on the outside world.
So, like when we're daydreaming.
Yeah, but specifically when we are ruminating on the past or worrying about the future, Arjun's DMN is entirely overactive.
He doesn't have the emotional shock absorbers to handle the bumps in the road because his suspension is already fully compressed by the weight of the past and the future.
That's a great analogy. And that sheer exhaustion, that sheer weight, pushes him to a breaking point. He finally realizes he needs a radical intervention outside of his normal environment.
Which brings us to this really interesting section on the geography of change, the pilgrimage for peace.
Yeah, so Arjun hews about this old wise man, this former great teacher who has calmed thousands of minds. And this guy is living alone in a quiet hut on the top of a hill.
And Arjun doesn't just, send him a text message or take a quick carriage ride to see him. The text specifically notes, after walking for 2 full days, Arjun finally reached the old man's hut.
2 full days of walking. That's roughly 40 to 50 miles on foot.
Yeah, that physical journey is a totally necessary decompression chamber.
It is. It forces a physiological reset.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 days of continuous walking introduces rhythmic bilateral stimulation to his nervous system.
Oh, like left, right, left, right.
Exactly. This alternating left-right movement is incredibly effective at quieting the amygdala, which is the brain's fear and anger center.
Oh, wait, isn't that the same underlying mechanism they use in trauma therapies? Like EMDR?
Yes. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's the exact same principle. He is physically moving his energy out of those spinning cognitive loops in his head and grounding it in the physical, somatic reality of his body.
And plus, he is physically leaving the specific geography of his triggers, like The loud people and the late food are literally miles behind him now.
So when he finally arrives at the top of this hill, the contrast between his state and the wise man's state is just profound.
Right. Arjun is this chaotic, burning bundle of nerves, exhausted from a 2-day hike. And what does he find? He finds the old man, quote, sitting peacefully under a tree with his eyes closed.
The old man is rooted. He's completely self-contained. He is not projecting outward at all. He is resting entirely inward.
But I really want to look closely at what Arjun actually says to him.
Well,
Because he bows and says, Grandfather, my mind is full of anger. I get angry very easily and it burns me from inside. Please teach me how to find peace.
the level of self-awareness in that statement is staggering. It's the absolute prerequisite for any psychological change.
Yeah, notice what he doesn't say. He doesn't complain about the village. He doesn't blame the cooks for being slow or the weather for being hot or the loud neighbors for annoying him.
He takes complete ownership of his condition by locating the problem within his own cognitive framework. My mind is full of anger. It burns me.
He recognizes the fire is internal.
Right. And until a person stops pointing at the external environment as the source of their misery, no intervention can possibly work.
He's finally tired of his own excuses, but okay, I have to challenge the setting here a little bit.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, the wise man lives alone in a quiet hut on top of an isolated hill. I mean, anyone could be peaceful in that environment,
That's fair.
right? He doesn't have loud neighbors. He forages or eats on his own schedule, so his food is never late. He has completely insulated himself from all the messy frictions of society.
Yeah, it's a very curated piece.
Exactly. And Arjun has to go back and actually live in a village with real, noisy, unpredictable people. It seems almost, I don't know, hypocritical for an isolated guy on a hill to teach a young man how to handle a crowded village.
That is a super common critique of ascetic traditions, right?
Yeah.
The idea that retreating to the mountain is just escaping the test, not passing it. But the narrative actually anticipates this pushback.
How so?
Because the wise man doesn't tell Arjun to build a hut next door. He doesn't invite him to withdraw from society permanently. The quiet hill is just a controlled environment for learning. It's a laboratory for the mind.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, like you don't learn how to handle a ship during a Category 5 hurricane. You learn the mechanics of sailing in a calm bay.
That makes total sense.
The isolation provides the necessary baseline of silence to introduce a radical new neurological concept.
Oh.
But the true test of the teaching will always be taking it back down the hill to the noisy village.
So, Arjun is in the laboratory. He's confessed his internal fire, and he's totally ready for the cure. And I feel like a typical story right here might have the old man pour some tea and deliver this stunning hour-long philosophical dissertation on the nature of attachment and the ego.
Right, but he doesn't do that at all.
No. Instead, the old man simply opens his eyes, smiles gently, and initiates this bizarre, dangerous test. He says, "Come with me. I will give you a small task."
Which brings us to the crucible. This is where the story gets really wild.
Very wild. The wise man takes Arjun to a river, and he hands him a small clay pot filled with burning hot coals. And he issues a very specific command.
Quote, walk from here to the big banyan tree and come back. But remember, you must not drop even one coal, and you must not let the pot burn your hands too much.
Okay, let's deconstruct the specific elements of this task because every single detail is heavily engineered. Look at the location. They are at a river.
Right. The river represents water, cooling, flow. Yet in this exact environment of cooling, the wise man hands him a concentrated source of extreme heat.
And it's in a clay pot. A clay pot is not an insulated thermos. It is a direct thermal conductor.
Oh, absolutely. The heat from those burning coals is going to transfer efficiently and painfully straight through the clay into the skin of Arjun's palms.
And the phrasing of the instructions creates an incredibly tense paradox. He says, you must not drop even one coal, and you must not let the pot burn your hands too much.
That phrasing is everything. He doesn't say keep your hands perfectly safe or perfectly comfortable. He explicitly implies that some level of burning is guaranteed.
Yeah, pain is an unavoidable metric of this task. He's commanding Arjun to constantly monitor his physical pain threshold. He has to endure the heat, manage it, but somehow not let it crock into permanent tissue damage.
He is setting up a really high-stakes boundary of physical sensation. Arjun cannot numb out. He cannot dissociate into a daydream, or he will either drop the pot or severely burn himself.
He has to stay intimately and continually connected to the sensation of the heat. And, the coals themselves are this brilliant physical manifestation of Arjun's internal state.
Yes. Arjun literally just confessed that his anger, quote, burns him from inside. The wise man has effectively reached inside Arjun's mind, pulled out that invisible consuming fire, and placed it directly into his hands as a tangible object.
It is the literal objectification of an emotion. But I have to point out the core tension here.
What's that?
Arjun is a guy who is perpetually furious, highly reactive, exhausted, and deeply uncomfortable in his own skin. And the old man's solution is to force this volatile guy to hold a pot of literal fire while walking through an obstacle course.
It seems counterintuitive.
It sounds insane. How is forcing a furious man to hold a pot of fire going to calm his nervous system down? Isn't this just swapping emotional torture for physical torture?
It looks like that on the surface, but the wise man is actually forcing a neurological triage situation.
Triage, like in an emergency room.
Exactly. Think about a medical triage scenario. You prioritize the massive arterial bleed over the sprained ankle, right?
Right. You deal with the immediate threat to life first?
The brain operates the exact same way with threat detection. Arjun's mind has been treating phantom insults from the past and imaginary anxieties about the future as if they were immediate life-threatening crises.
Oh, wow. So the wise man introduces a massive, undeniable, immediate physical threat.
Yes. The 400-degree clay pot touching his skin demands 100% of his cognitive bandwidth.
The brain's threat detection system instantly overrides the past hurts and future problems apps because the present moment is suddenly an urgent matter of physical survival.
You literally cannot spare the computational power to ruminate on an insult from 3 years ago when your hands are currently managing burning coals.
You drop the pot.
Exactly. The sheer volume of the present moment forcibly unplugs his ability to time travel.
That is fascinating. The pain pathways, what are they called?
The spinothalamic tract. It carries those thermal and pain signals right to the brain, and it completely hijacks his attention. He's grounded in the present not by peace, but by acute physical necessity.
So, with this burning pot in his hands, Arjun turns and begins the walk to the banyan tree. And this thrusts us into a whole new phase of the story.
Yeah, he is navigating the obstacle course of the present.
And the text details exactly what this looks like. It says, the path was rough, thorns were there, people were talking loudly, dogs were barking.
Let's look really closely at that environment because it is a critical mirror to the first section.
Right. Back in the village, loud people triggered his absolute fury. Here on the path, the stimulus is exactly identical. People are talking loudly, and barking dogs are compounding the noise.
Add a rough, thorny path, and you have a highly irritating, overstimulating environment. It is the exact recipe for an Arjun-level meltdown.
But look at his behavioral output. The text states, but Arjun's eyes stayed only on the pot. He walked very slowly and carefully.
He completely ignores the external stimuli that used to paralyze him with rage.
So why didn't the loud people make him angry this time?
Because of the biological mechanism at play here, which involves the reticular activating system, or the RAS.
Okay, tell us about the RAS.
The human brain is bombarded by roughly 11 million bits of sensory information every single second. But we can only consciously process about 50 bits.
11 million versus 50, that is a massive bottleneck.
It is. So the RAS acts as the gatekeeper. It decides what information gets through to the conscious mind based on immediate importance.
I like to think of it like the targeting computer on a fighter jet.
Oh, that's a cool way to look at it. How so?
Well, if a missile lock is detected, the computer automatically diverts all power to evasive maneuvers and countermeasures.
Yeah.
Right? It instantly shuts down non-essential systems like cabin climate control or internal comms.
Right, because those don't matter if the plane explodes.
Exactly. The pilot doesn't even have to think about it. The system reroutes all resources to immediate survival. For Arjun, the burning blot is the missile lock.
Yes. And the loud people and the barking dogs are just the cabin climate control. His brain categorizes that noise as completely irrelevant data and just shuts down his awareness of it entirely.
The noise was the catalyst back in the village, but this walk proves it was never the actual cause of his anger.
The stimulus, the loud voices, remained exactly the same. But the internal receptor is what changed.
Right. His anger back home was caused by having vast amounts of loose, unstructured attention available to just attach to minor annoyances.
Because annoyance requires surplus attention. You have to have the luxury of spare bandwidth to be annoyed by a barking dog.
Oh man, that is so true. And the stakes of the immediate moment with these burning coals are far too high for him to afford that luxury. So the mission is a success.
Yeah, the text says when he finally returned, his hands were red, but he had not dropped a single coal.
That detail of the red hands is vital, I think. He didn't just float through this effortlessly. He absorbed some of the heat. He endured the friction of present reality.
He managed the pain threshold exactly as instructed, and that intense, necessary focus insulated him completely from his usual psychological triggers.
He survived the crucible. He proved that he actually possesses the cognitive machinery to filter out the noise of the world.
But this level of survival-based hyperfocus comes with a profound blind spot, and the wise man is about to reveal it.
Yeah, the wise man doesn't congratulate him upon his return. He doesn't validate the success at all. Instead, he initiates this brilliant Socratic reveal to expose the flaw in Arjun's current state of awareness.
The old man smiles and asks three very specific questions. He says, while you were walking, did you notice the beautiful flowers on the side? Did you hear the birds singing? Did you see the children playing?
The pedagogical method here is just masterclass. The wise man doesn't just tell Arjun the lesson. He forces Arjun to articulate his own sensory deficit.
Because we, the readers, were told about the negative stimuli earlier. The thorns, the loud people, the dogs. We kind of braced against the annoyance right along with Arjun.
But now the wise man reveals a parallel track of positive stimuli existing in the exact same physical space and time. And Arjun's response is the crux of the whole lesson.
Right. He shakes his head and admits, no, grandfather, I saw nothing. I was only thinking about the hot coals.
He missed all of it. He successfully filtered out the irritating dogs, but he also filtered out the playing children. He filtered out the rough path, but he missed the beautiful flowers.
And at first glance, this kind of feels like a condemnation of mindfulness.
Totally.
Yeah.
Wait, so is the lesson that focusing on the present moment makes you completely blind to the beautiful things in life? Because if so, that sounds like a miserable way to live.
Right. He was just as blind to the joy as he was to the annoyance. Why would anyone want to live with that level of tunnel vision?
It's huge tension, but we have to accurately map what the coals represent in this metaphor to resolve it.
Exactly. The coals do not represent the present moment. The coals represent his obsession.
Right. Remember earlier, the wise man used the coals to externalize Arjun's anger. So the wise man is proving a mathematical point about cognitive capacity. It's a zero-sum game.
When your mind is entirely monopolized by the hot coals, whether that is a physical pot of 400-degree fire or a burning internal rage about how someone slighted you yesterday, you literally cannot process the beauty around you.
There is no bandwidth left to see the flowers.
The blind spot isn't caused by a healthy presence in the moment. It is caused by fixation on the burning.
Arjun's daily life back in the village was functionally identical to this walk. Every single day, he walks through his village, mentally clutching the hot coals of his past hurts and his future anxieties.
He is so fixated on holding on to his grievances that he walks through his entire life suffering from inattentional blindness to any potential joy.
The walk with the physical coals was just a mirror. It forced him to physically enact what he does neurologically every single day of his life.
And that realization perfectly sets up the wise man's final, explicit thesis on the mechanics of time, anger, and peace.
The wise man softly delivers the core lesson, translating emotional grudges into physical thermodynamics.
This is exactly. Anger is like these hot coals. The longer you hold it, the more it burns you.
The longer you hold it, the more it burns. I mean, if you pick up a hot coal and throw it immediately, you might get a minor blister, right? The acute pain is brief.
But if you hold it, if you clutch it to your chest for weeks or months or years, it will burn straight through your flesh. It will systematically destroy your system.
It's a visceral, terrifying image of what chronic stress does to the body over time.
Then the wise man lays out the internal architecture of the mind. He says, but when your mind is fully focused on the present moment, there is no space left for anger. The past cannot hurt you, and the future cannot scare you when you live only in this moment.
He's unpacking the spatial geometry of consciousness here. Mental space is finite.
Right. If present moment awareness occupies the entirety of the available space, anger is literally evicted.
Because anger, by definition in this framework, requires time travel.
Exactly. To sustain rage, you must actively access a memory of a past violation or project a predictive model of a future threat.
If you sever the cognitive ability to time travel, the anger immediately loses its fuel supply. It just starves.
The past cannot hurt you, and the future cannot scare you. Those statements isolate exactly where our suffering lives. It almost never lives in the exact fraction of a second we are currently occupying.
And upon hearing this, the text describes a profound physical release for Arjun. It says, at that moment, Arjun felt something heavy leave his chest.
He arrived carrying this crushing invisible weight, that baseline of exhaustion we talked about earlier, and through this realization, the weight just evaporates.
The visceral experience of managing the physical coals, combined with the intellectual framing of the wise man, created a systemic shift. His nervous system finally stood down.
And the text notes this beautiful environmental shift at this exact moment. It says, the old man smiled as the sun was setting.
Oh, I love that detail. The setting sun represents a natural cooling down of the world.
Yes, the fire of the day is ending, which perfectly mirrors the extinguishing of the fire within Arjun's mind.
So Arjun thanks the grandfather and walks the 2 days back to his village. And this is the most critical detail of the entire source text, for me at least. He returns to the exact same village. He returns to the exact same loud neighbors, the exact same cooks making the food late, the exact same oppressive weather.
The external stimuli have not changed 1 degree.
But the text says he is a different man. He is peaceful. He finally possesses the secret.
And the secret is defined explicitly at the end of the text. It says, real peace is not found far away. It is already inside us when we choose to live in this moment.
So the ultimate takeaway here isn't to fix the external environment. You can't fix the loud people. You can't control the weather.
Right, it is an internal architectural shift. It is the recognition that you are the one choosing to hold the coals.
But let's ground this in reality for a second, because it is one thing to have this profound realization when a wise man has just orchestrated a perfect, dangerous physical metaphor for you.
Sure.
How does someone choose to live in the moment on a random Tuesday, stuck in traffic, when they don't have a literal pot of burning coals to force their attention into the present?
Well, the text provides the framework for that application.
Right.
The physical coals were just training wheels.
Green wheels.
Yeah, they were a loud, painful, extreme version of the present moment, designed to force his attention to bypass his DMN, his default mode network.
Ah, okay.
But the realization that peace is already inside us proves that the capacity for extreme focus is a native human trait. You don't need a physical threat to access it.
The present moment itself becomes the anchor.
Yes, you can voluntarily direct your computational bandwidth to the sensory reality of now, rather than the conceptual reality of then.
So when you feel the anger rising at the slow driver in front of you, you don't fight the anger. You flood your cognitive space with immediate sensory data.
Exactly. You feel the texture of the steering wheel. You listen to the specific hum of the engine. You notice the color of the sky.
You actively fill the room of your mind so completely with the present that the anger has no available RAM to execute its program.
You crowd the anger out. You starve it of processing power.
We've tracked an incredible journey here today. We started with a 26-year-old man who was utterly paralyzed by his past hurts and his future fears.
A man whose internal exhaustion was destroying his body and his relationships.
He undertook a physical pilgrimage to confront his own burning mind through the dangerous crucible of the clay pot.
He learned that his attention is a zero-sum game, and he had been weaponizing his own focus against himself.
And by aggressively anchoring his attention on the present moment, he learned to drop the burning coals. He realized he was the one keeping his hands closed around the fire.
It's a complete reclamation of internal agency.
We so often think of peace as a destination. We think it's a quiet hut on a hill that we have to hike 2 days to find, or a vacation we have to save up for, or a set of perfectly controlled circumstances where no one ever speaks too loudly.
We constantly think peace is somewhere else.
But if Arjun's story is true, peace isn't a place at all. It is simply the deliberate refusal to time travel. It is the radical, difficult decision to stay exactly where your feet are.
That's beautifully said.
So, as you go back to your own noisy, unpredictable village today, I want you to ask yourself this. What burning coals from yesterday are you still fiercely holding in your hands right now? And what beautiful things in your immediate present are you completely blind to because you refuse to drop them?
Remember, the heat you feel is entirely your own.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Carry the lessons of the banyan tree and the clay pot with you into the noise, and we'll see you next time.